Life in prison is not meant to be easy, but there are prisons, and then there is the most brutal prison in the world. In the high desert of Colorado sits ADX Florence, the world's most extreme prison, built to house the most dangerous criminals on the planet. Here, prisoners don't just lose their freedom, they lose their identity, their sanity, and sometimes their will to live. But before we explore what makes ADX Florence so brutal, let's take a look at a few other infamous prisons that have made an infamous name for themselves. First is Black Dolphin Prison in Russia, located near the Kazakhstan border. It holds some of Russia's most violent criminals, serial killers, terrorists, and cannibals. Inmates are blindfolded when moved, forced to march bent over with hands cuffed behind their backs. They never know where they are. It's a mental game as much as a physical one. Cells are under constant surveillance. No talking is allowed, no relaxation, no privacy. Inmates are woken every hour to ensure they haven't tried to harm themselves. It's estimated that the prisoners here have killed over 3,500 people combined. Escape is not just unlikely, it's inconceivable. In North Korea, the Kaeshan internment camp is shrouded in secrecy. Known as Camp 14, it houses political prisoners and their families, 3 generations at a time. Officially, North Korea denies its existence, but survivors like Shin Don-hyuk have described unimaginable horrors.
I wasn't even a person per se, not a human being. I was an animal. That's what I feel I was in the camp.
Shin was born in Camp 14. He witnessed executions as a child, including the public hanging of his own mother and brother. Torture was common, even children weren't spared. There are no trials, no rights, no appeals. You're born there, you live there, you die there. In Paris, there is La Santé Prison. Built in 1867, it once held infamous names like Carlos the Jackal. In the year 2000, it made headlines when 124 inmates attempted suicide in a single year. Many succeeded. Some cells were flooded with wastewater from broken sewage lines. Others had no access to daylight. Prisoners described the air as thick with rot and hopelessness. Solitary confinement could last for years, often without explanation. And quite possible the most famous prison featured in many movies, Alcatraz. It sits on a rocky island in the San Francisco Bay, surrounded by icy and shark-infested waters, and with swirling currents strong enough to drag a swimmer out to sea. One of its greatest ways to torture its inmates was the fact that they could daily see the great city of San Francisco looming on the horizon and imagining the lives people were living. From 1934 to 1963, Alcatraz housed some of America's most notorious criminals: Al Capone, George Machine Gun Kelly, and Robert Stroud, the Birdman of Alcatraz. But its most famous moment came in 1962 when 3 inmates, Frank Morris and brothers John and Clarence Anglin, chiseled through their cell walls, climbed a utility corridor, and escaped using a homemade raft crafted from raincoats. They were never found.
It was a legendary escape from a place that was supposed to be inescapable. 55 years ago this month, 3 men pulled off the impossible, breaking out of Alcatraz.
Officially presumed drowned, but rumors of their survival still stir imaginations today. Their story was immortalized in the movie Escape from Alcatraz. Now, Alcatraz is one of the most intriguing and interesting tourist attractions you'll ever visit. At first glance, these prisons seem as tough and as brutal as can be imagined. But modern prison life in Colorado is hell on earth for those incarcerated there. Officially known as the United States Penitentiary Florence Administrative Maximum Facility, ADX, this is the only federal supermax prison in America, nestled deep in the unforgiving desert of Fremont County, Colorado. ADX looks more like a military fortress than a prison. Surrounded by jagged mountains and desolate land, it spans 37 acres, 15 hectares, and lies about 100 miles south of Denver. It opened in 1994 and was created from a deadly wave of violence in other federal prisons, including the savage stabbing deaths of 2 correction officers in a single day at Marion Penitentiary. Built as the ultimate holding cell for the nation's most dangerous criminals, We're not just talking about bank robbers or gang leaders. We're talking about people whose names are burned into history for the chaos they unleashed. Here are a few. Take Zakaria Moussaoui, a self-proclaimed member of Al-Qaeda. He's serving 6 life sentences for conspiring in the September 11th attacks. Then there's Ramzi Youssef, the mastermind behind the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center. He tried to topple the Twin Towers with a truck bomb, killing 6 and injuring over 1,000. And that's not all. He also plotted to blow up a dozen planes over the Pacific and even planned to assassinate Pope John Paul II. Locked behind those walls is also Richard Reed, better known as the Shoe Bomber. In 2001, he boarded a plane with explosives hidden in his sneakers, ready to detonate mid-flight. Passengers tackled him before disaster struck.
I jumped on the shoulder of this guy, and 2 other passengers came on him.
There was a request for belts to tie this man to his chair. There were belts coming from all directions.
And just a few cells down, you'd find Umar Farouk Abdulmuttalib, the underwear bomber. On Christmas Day, 2009, he tried to ignite explosives sewn into his underwear aboard a Detroit-bound flight. Same story, stopped just in time. Then there's Mustafa Kamal Mustafa, an Egyptian cleric who tried to build a terrorist training camp in Oregon. He also orchestrated the kidnapping of tourists in Yemen. Now he preaches to no one but the walls around him. ADX is also home to Terry Nichols, the Oklahoma City co-conspirator responsible for one of the deadliest domestic terror attacks in U.S. history.
Bombing in Oklahoma City was an attack on innocent children and defenseless citizens. It was an act of cowardice, and it was evil.
186 lives lost in 1995. Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, also called this place home before he died in 2023. He mailed bombs to universities, airlines, and businesses, leaving a trail of paranoia and destruction for nearly 2 decades. These men committed crimes so horrific, so calculated, that the U.S. government couldn't risk giving them even a sliver of freedom. So what makes ADX Florence such an unforgiving place? Well, let's pull back the curtain. This facility was engineered with one goal: solitary confinement. Its 21-acre layout houses up to 490 inmates, but currently, over 300 of the most dangerous inmates are each locked away in their isolated world. Inside, cells are no more than 87 square feet, barely the size of a small walk-in closet. The bed, desk, and stool are all molded from poured concrete, unmovable, unbreakable. The sink has no standard tap. The mirror is polished steel, bolted into the wall. The shower runs on a timer so inmates can't flood their cells. The toilet shuts off if it's blocked. Even the lights are controlled remotely, off and on at the whim of the guards. There are no bars here, just solid steel doors, each with a slot barely wide enough to slide through a food tray. Forget mess halls. Meals are delivered straight to the door with zero contact. Windows? Barely slits in the wall. And here's the thing, they're angled upward, so prisoners can't even tell where they are in the building. The only view is the sky. No trees, no buildings, no horizon, just a slice of blue or gray. Exercise? 1 hour a day in a concrete pit, also windowless. It's been likened to be like the bottom of a deep, empty swimming pool. No equipment, no human interaction. 10 steps in one direction, 31 in a circle. That's the full range of movement. For the first 3 years, inmates are denied all physical contact. No shared meals, no recreational time, no face-to-face interactions. Just a rotating cast of guards behind glass and steel. ADX Florence is nicknamed the Alcatraz of the Rockies. But Alcatraz had yard time. This place barely has air. The security here is unmatched. There are pressure-sensitive floors, laser motion detectors, 12-foot fences laced with razor wire, and 1,400 remote-controlled steel doors. Surveillance cameras record every angle 24/7. Even routine movements require at least 3 guards. The inmate is shackled hand and foot, hunched over with 1 guard on each side and another behind. There is no room for error. 1 wrong step and the entire facility locks down. No one has ever escaped ADX Florence. But it's not just the physical isolation that makes this place hellish. It's the psychological impact. Some prisoners spend decades without touching another human being. Take Tommy Silverstein, a convicted murderer who spent over 35 years in solitary confinement. He called it being buried alive. When he died in 2019, he left behind chilling letters describing voices, hallucinations, and the feeling of vanishing into madness. Others have mutilated themselves, gouged out their own eyes, or attempted suicide just to make the silence stop. Even former Panamanian dictator Manuel Noriega reportedly began talking to insects during his time here. The psychological breakdown isn't a side effect, it's a feature. Critics, including human rights groups like Amnesty International and the ACLU, have condemned ADX as inhumane, calling the prolonged isolation a form of psychological torture. But the U.S. government defends it. These inmates aren't just dangerous men, they're masterminds, manipulators, killers with charisma and the ability to orchestrate chaos from behind bars. ADX is the last stop, the end of the line. It's not about rehabilitation, it's about control. Some call it justice, others call it a life sentence without the hope of living. From the isolation cells of ADX Florence to the secret horrors of Camp 14 in North Korea, these prisons do more than punish. They erase hope. They bury people alive with concrete, steel, and silence. So now the question is, should these places exist? Or have we crossed a line in the name of justice? Let us know what you think in the comments. And if you found this video eye-opening, check out the next video for more gripping stories from every corner of the world. And while you're at it, hit the like button and subscribe.